Wound, Part 6, pages 77 to 85. The nucleus of the Socrati did much to bring world peace. It overshadowed the ancient world so much so Christianity and Islam never formed. The path is wide. 5,000 Marseille citizens worship under monks every Friday. It is larger than Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, and Buhara combined, is the most astronomical creed on Terra, is 1,700 years old, and yet it stands at 1/10 of the population, Indian style, row after row, listening to the monks on microphones, preaching like hip-hop boys in hoods and flat-bill baseball caps with wild gestures like on Def Poetry Jam, and has never broke 10% in centuries or wavered from 1 out of 10 Terrans as adherents for 300 years. The clergy are all monks with no hierarchy. 5 monks preach on a small stage for an hour a week. They manage every library in the world. Their religion is neither growing nor is it shrinking. The monks wear a full-bodied hooded brown fleece robe with the hood covering a gray flat-bill cap with a red symbol of a chalice to represent Socrates drinking the hemlock instead of leaving Athens. The monks are allowed to get married and have kids. Women are allowed to become monks. Their holy book is every book in the library. The monks restrict themselves from drinking by taking marijuana as a sacrament to have visions. They moderate their intake to no more than a 10-gram cellophane joint a day. Although plastic does not exist, hemp polymers do. The polymer is called a lacis, which may as well be plastic. Pardon the misinterpretation. Monks can begin preaching from the nucleus at the age of 15. We have an agreement with the indigenous people of North and South America not to settle their lands if they agree to let us plant trees and hemp in what we call New York State, which today in 1200 covers a more secular swath of New York and a little more to form a half-tree, half-hemp location, New Royal Cooperative Forest. The rest of North America is a refuge to the native and is such unmeddled with by the civilized world. We have the exact same thing in Venezuela called the Equatorial Royal Cooperative Forest. Both New Royal and Equatorial provide all the wood and hemp the cooperative will need for a very long time. The growing method allows the trees to reach the 30-year mark in 1 year, and the next part of that time the trees grow at a normal rate. The stellarnauts will have to wind the ship for 1 minute every 12 hours, which means Archimedes, duh. In 4 months we'll have to wind the ship 244 times to get the torque to remain charged. On all cooperative devices, there is an analog display at 60 minutes left before the device will shut down. Then the lights up at that 11th hour mark when the winder must begin to crank the device up to 1 minute or face shutdown at hour 12. Everything runs this way from food processors to the Mach 3 maglev train. Elacritus. In our world, there were crank cars that did not use gasoline in the year 1920. It's no different here in Marseille and everywhere except wider spread, more efficient, and the crank is usually smaller and inside the vehicle. The gas pedals are replaced with speed and brake mechanisms activated by grip in the steering wheel, while the crank is where the shifter used to be. It is recommended that the driver pull over to wind the vehicle for safety reasons and the law. Archimedes' is 600 feet by 30 feet and shaped like a rifle bullet. It is sprayed bronze in color. Archimedes' is on the moon. It is white. At top speed, Archimedes' is traveling towards Mars at around 12,000 miles an hour. It is designed to crash on Mars were it not for the flame-retardant parachute that ought to put Archimedes about 50 feet from the payloads to assemble the return launcher to 30 by 30 by 15 living pods and 30 by 60 by 15 research lab and a Marsmobile where the Stellarnauts will work for 6 months before returning home. The Stellarnauts will be away from Terra for 14 months. The Archimedes was preceded by a series of stellar bots that are 32 shipping carriers in the numerical order under the name Helios, Helios 2, Helios 2, etc. The Helios payloads dropped one package a day on Mars for 32 days in a row after the same 4-month journey. The last payload dropped yesterday. Archimedes landed today, 14 hours from the last payload. The average surface temperature of Mars is negative 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Luckily, this landing zone is a balmy 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The payloads will have to be wound and thawed, most importantly the gray sludge, the basis of their food for the next 10 months. 20 of the payloads assembly into the launcher to Terra by growing arms and legs in robotic fashion and climbing on step ballasts until each piece locks into place for a vertical mile. The piece packaging assembles into a launch ball to Deimos and Phobos that splits in half and lands on each of Mars' moons and reassembles again on each one into radio transmitters that strengthen the signal from Mars back to Terra. The 12 other payloads assemble the research facility, living quarters, food supplies, and radio tower on Mars. Not only does the radio tower transmit to Terra, it transmits a signal into outer space 3,100 times the speed of light, with a gain-assisted superluminal propagator built by the 2 doctors aboard the ship. The signal will reach Centauri and back in 26.4 hours prior to send. The receiver will lie dormant for 2 days. It was decided the most mathematically understandable signal is music. The Mars FTL transmitter will play a selection of Terran harpsichord hard dance music enjoyed by the Friday night dance crowd back in Marseille. One mission while on Mars for 6 months is to locate extraterrestrial intelligence by way of warp radio quantum tunneling, or RACT. W-R-A-Q-T, spelled RACT, R-A-C-K-E-D. There are people without jobs who live on the stipend alone. No one ever complains about freeloaders because everyone receives the same stipend from those with nothing to the Marquis of Marseille, who is the billionaire entrepreneur who had the Archimedes built, as well as the Mach 3 train Alacritus. Some of these jobless few travel the 7 cities of France or outside the country, eating fine food and staying in the free traveler lodges looking for beautiful women to talk to while the winder keeps their refrigerator running. That $200 rent only amounts to $400 in our money, and a monthly train voucher is $100 or half what's left of the terrari, or $100 or $200 in our cash is about 100 terrari short of the need for a prostitute and fading happiness. Even with the temptation to not work, only 0.1% of the population able to work, not including children, retirees, and the gravely disabled, remain willfully unemployed, and that is their right. In Marseille, this is 50 people. 40 of these people are between 16 and 30. The rest are between 31 and 59. 60 is their retirement age. All drugs are legal, so these 50 largely stay within a network to hang out, have sex, smoke mostly cannabis, and to keep out of jail and explore possibilities. Mental illness is not a grave disability, since with naturopathic remedies, some of which cure Mental illness is not a grave disability, since with naturopathic remedies, some of which cure cancer, a person with neurolepsis, mental illness is called neurolepsis in this world, can almost always, 98.734% of the time, be cured of brain disorders leading to neurolepsis. These 50 once had mental illness symptoms, but they're treated so they don't seem anything less than normal. These particular 50 are sometimes called watchers because they people watch. They survive on 200 terrari after all bills are paid. This is their fun money.